The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Welcome back to the Nova Society, a space where dialogue deepens understanding and civic responsibility comes to life. I'm Dr. Mark Bound, joined by our regular panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon. Together, we'll unpack the stories that matter most, exploring the headlines, the history, and the big ideas shaping today's conversations. Let's dive in and hear what the panel has for us today.
So today we're taking a hard look at the newly announced Iran Peace Deal, a development that, depending on who you ask, is either a diplomatic breakthrough, a political sleight of hand, or a fragile ceasefire dressed up as a or an historic agreement. The administration has framed it as a major step toward ending the conflict. Critics argue it's confusing, incomplete, and lacking transparency. And the public, they're trying to figure out what happened. So in this episode, we're going to break down what we know, what we don't know, and what this deal really means for the United States, Iran, and the broader Middle East. As I understand it, Mike Pence called it a deal to talk about a deal. And I'm unclear whether the strait is opened or closed. I mean, Vance has said that the strait is open, but I don't believe anything he said. And as I understand it, the memorandum of understanding or the talks, says nothing about ballistic missiles. There's no mention of Iran providing continued support for Hezbollah, for example. We're going to be returning their $300 billion of sanctioned money that we have been holding. Iran will have full control of the strait after the 60 days, along with Oman. I believe they're allowed to charge a fee. And as Vance was saying, Trump's saying he's turned over a new leaf and he's going to treat the leaders differently and this and that. Trump was threatening that if the leadership didn't agree to the deal, they would never return to their own country. He would bomb them, and they would never even return to their own country, which means that he would be taking them hostage, or that he would kill them.
Right, or blowing up their plane on their way home.
Yeah, I mean, and that, of course, I think they walked out at that point. Did they not?
Yeah, it's hard for me to say what happened when, and
Yeah, exactly.
Whether they walked out because of that, or they walked out after that, or before it, or whatever. But whatever is going on, it's a freaking mess. The fact that JD Vance is there means that Trump is no longer involved, because JD Vance serves as as basically the fall guy here. And when it doesn't work out, he's going to take the blame and destroy his career, which is, maybe the only good thing that comes out of this.
I thought that Vance had already left and was on his way back, and that he was saying how well it had gone, which I don't take any stock in at all. Yeah. Because as we were saying in an earlier podcast, he was saying, I have no diplomatic experience at all, and I'm going to be learning. And I'm thinking, oh my God, why are you going at all? And of course, it's another Trump incompetence.
Right. And to your point, what JD Vance said today is that the Iranians agreed that inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Commission or agency would be going back to Iran to do inspections, which they were doing as part of the JPCOA, but have not allowed anybody in since Trump ripped up the JPCOA. And now Vance is saying that they're back. Nobody from the agency itself has confirmed that, nor has Iran. So to your point, again, there's nothing that J.D. Vance could say at this point that I would trust without some kind of verification from the other parties involved.
Yeah, and
there
earlier,
isn't.
I think it was earlier, either Saturday or Friday or something. My days are all messed up now. Vance was saying, "Oh, and more oil has crossed from the strait. We're back up to where we were before." And if you calculate it out, it's like 1/10 the amount. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I mean, this guy, he's such a smooth liar. But I noticed that every time he opens his mouth to say something that is untrue, he inhales a lot of air. And yeah, he'll go and he'll start to talk. And I thought that was very interesting. He seems to take in a lot of air. And I don't know, that I could just be incorrect about that. But I mean, he's very slick, but he's not trustworthy at all. And so when I've listened to some analysts who said, well, it's better that JD go, that JD is going than Trump himself, I'm thinking, well, I don't know about that, because JD doesn't know what he's doing either, and he's not any more trustworthy than Trump is. So yeah, I don't know if the strait is open or closed, and I don't know what Israel's doing. Are they in Lebanon or out? And ceasefires, of course, don't necessarily mean ceasing fire any more than it means in Gaza, where the overt military force continues. Does it not? I mean, they haven't attained a ceasefire there.
Well,
No, but it's quiet today, though, apparently. So I guess that's enough. Yeah.
I mean, this deal is exactly. First of all, Vance, he's a politician. He's not going to come back and say, "Boy, that was a total disaster." I mean, no politician is going to do that. He's going to try to paint it as rosy as he possibly can. I mean, that's just a normal politician. Show me the politician that comes back from a mission like this, or a bill or whatever, and says, boy, did I screw that up, but royal. Nobody does that if you want to stay in politics. So what we understand, what I'm getting from this is supposedly there's a halt to major offensives from both and operations by both sides. Okay. There will be a phased drawdown of U.S. naval forces in the region. Now, once again, we're talking about phased. What are the phases? Well, we're really not sure about that. There will be limited sanctions relief for Iran if they comply. What does that mean? Not a whole hell of a lot. We have no idea what exactly that means. There will be a monitoring mechanism involving European partners. What exactly are they monitoring? We're really not sure. But here's the kicker. Here is the real kicker. A commitment to resume nuclear oversight talks within 60 days. The same thing you already had before that took 2 years. 2 years of negotiation. You had it. And now you're going to revisit it in 60 days. And you think the Iranians are going to go with what they went before that you tore up? Not a chance. So, I mean, that's where you basically sit. And it's been inconsistent messaging, completely inconsistent. And yeah, this is a framework. But then they say, well, it's a binding agreement. And, it's a pathway to de-escalation. And it's just, they're using a lot of word salad to describe something that basically has nobody really knows. Yeah.
Who are the European partners? I mean,
you
mentioned... Okay, yeah. So we don't know what they're monitoring or who's doing the monitoring.
Nope. And there's nothing about nuclear weapons. There's nothing about ballistic missiles. There's nothing about. These are just basically.
And there's nothing about Netanyahu and what he's going to do.
Nothing about.
And he wasn't at the table.
Nope.
Yeah.
So, you
and
get this.
No, I was just say, was Hezbollah at the table also?
No. Well, unless you want to consider Iran Hezbollah, since they take their marching orders pretty much from Iran, so you could probably say that. You could also say Hamas was at the table because Iran was there. I mean, that's they're proxies for Iran. So they're speaking to it. The only thing is that Israel is not a proxy for us.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think that Trump would ever say to Netanyahu, "We're not going to fund you anymore"? I mean, Netanyahu was saying, "Well, we don't want to be funded by the United States anymore." I mean, would if you were in charge, either you or Scott, would you say, "Okay, fine, we're not going to fund you militarily at all anymore, period. We're stopping now"? Since Trump seems to be constantly ignoring Congress anyway, and saying, "Well, I'm taking money here, I'm not giving money there, I'm doing this, I'm doing that." So, and I know Congress is supposed to have the determination where funds go, but Trump doesn't care about that, so he can just say, "We're not going to fund Israel anymore." Would you do that? Do you think Trump would do that?
To me, it's not just about Israel, although let's be real. Iran with ballistic missiles, which Trump has already said they can have, which is a complete flip-flop, and the possibility of nuclear warheads on those missiles, that is an existential threat to Israel. But it's also an existential threat to Saudi Arabia, to Qatar, to the UAE, to a lot of countries in that region. And the first thing that would happen is not if Iran ever announced that they had nuclear weapons and the ability to deliver them. The first thing that would happen would be Saudi Arabia would go out and get it too, and nothing would be able to stop them from doing that. They would go out and they would arm up. And now at least until China had intervened and got them together on a couple of things, two mortal enemies with different views of Islam and different views of the world, Arabs on one side, Persians on the other, very different cultures, would want to arm up. And you'd have a situation that probably makes Pakistan and India look like child's play because of the tensions between them. And the whole world would be sitting there looking at them all the time going, "Please don't do this, please don't do this, please don't do this." I mean, it would be so destabilizing. And of course, probably Egypt would follow suit and Turkey would follow suit. And, all of a sudden we've got nuclear proliferation when the whole thing was about the exact opposite of that. And Iran had signed on to that anti-proliferation treaty and from what we understand, had adhered to it. And even the Ayatollah that Trump had murdered said that it's anti-Islamic to have the bomb in his interpretation. So I don't want to sound like Tucker Carlson, but what are we doing? What are we doing here? Like we're achieving the exact opposite of what we wanted to achieve.
Well, we're following Trump's feelings because he doesn't have to pay attention to international law or anything else. He just goes with his feelings, and he hasn't found a limit on his powers yet. He knows that's a lesson there somewhere, but he doesn't know where, and he has no limits on his power. Oh no. Oh no.
Okay.
Look, I didn't vote for him. All right, and I'm getting really
and you know what, Brooke? I was wondering if you voted for him. I was on the fence of whether Brooklyn voted for him or not. All right, well, so to the question, would he say, "All right, we're not going to fund you"?
Yeah.
Of course, I answer that with another question: why, and for what purpose? If it's the purpose to stop Israel from attacking Hezbollah, it's not going to work.
Okay.
It's not going to work. Right. That isn't going to happen. And the fact is he further destabilizes things because, all right, Israel has a finite amount of weaponry available to them and a finite amount of money. They are surrounded by people that don't like them. They're in a bad neighborhood. The American people, for whatever reason they may have had a history of supporting Israel. So if he was to pull that money out and say, "Oh, we're not helping you anymore. You're on your own," with the intent of, well, Israel's just going to behave themselves, probably a dumb move, absolutely a stupid move. And when Israel does get itself depleted, which, let's face it, time would tell, who's going to have to come in and clean up the mess again? The United States. We're going to have to come in and clean up the mess because the European powers are not happy with Netanyahu. They're not happy, and even though Trump sometimes makes out that he's not happy with Netanyahu, the fact is that the European powers probably are not going to come in. They'll come in and monitor things, and again, like you said, we don't know what exactly it is they're monitoring. But beyond that, I don't think you're going to see the European powers come in and do much of anything. So, it's interesting question. Would he do it? Sure, he probably. Yeah, it's possible. Would I do it? No, because I have to ask myself, why would I do it? What is my end goal? But unfortunately, with this president, there are no end goals. He can't see beyond the end of his nose. He lives, as Scott says, for the next 5 minutes. Beyond that, he doesn't care. Yeah, bro.
So then when Trump says, well, I can control Netanyahu, which obviously he can't,
That's
nor
a fantasy.
should he, because it, just like Ukraine, Israel's a sovereign nation, and Netanyahu's going to do what he wants for himself and whatever else his motivations are. Where do you see this situation going? I mean, as I understand it, the petroleum CEOs went to Trump and talked to him and told him, look, we have very little remaining in our strategic oil reserve, and this has got to stop, and the strait has got to be opened. And they also went to the newspapers, and you can find that information online, and we the country, and the planet, as far as oil and gas is concerned, will be in dire straits, certainly by the end of July, and it will be really bad by the end of September, October, if this situation continues. And I honestly don't know how this war and whole situation ends, not with the way Trump is behaving. He's continuously blaming Iran, and he's not controlling himself, which of course he can't do. He's so undiplomatic and unprofessional and unserious, and violating the agreement constantly and lying. I mean, where do you see this going?
Who are you talking about, Brooke? Bibi or Trump? When you start talking about people
both.
lying and not getting it done, they both.
Well,
that applies to both
Trump
of them.
not getting the agreement done, but I don't see where the war that Trump started, along with Netanyahu, I don't see how this ends peaceably, and the strait is open and remains open.
Yeah.
And everyone calms down, because what Trump wants or says he wants, and what Israel needs to do according to Iran, are two different.
Miriam Adelson is one of the big backers. I think she gave him something like $140 million or something like that for his last campaign. Her husband, Sheldon, had been also a huge supporter of Trump, early supporter of Trump, gave him a lot of money. They always considered him Israel's savior, the best president for Israel ever, et cetera, all those superlatives that you can think of. And she has a newsletter, I guess, that goes out to her followers and said that Trump had betrayed them. And then Trump turned around and said that Hezbollah needs to stop fighting Israel so that there can be peace there and the Israelis can pull back. Because, of course, Israel continues to react, or some might say overreact, to every time somebody shoots a rocket at them from Lebanon. And, and that leads to like massive bombing campaigns and you see whole city blocks collapsing underneath the weight of Israeli bombs and missiles. But here's some of the consequences that have happened since this MOU. Okay, Netanyahu looks like really looks terrible. He has for a long time now. His failure of October 7th, that happened on his watch. There's nobody else he can blame it on. He didn't get the job done. So there are other right-wing politicians in Israel who are beginning to pull up and form new parties, including the former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, who has now a new center-right party to challenge Likud, which is Netanyahu's party. Okay, so that's one thing. There's also a center-left party that is between the Israeli Labor Party, right, which has been a major party for a long time, and a party called Meretz, which is also sort of a leftist kind of party. More significantly, there's a new party launched by Jewish Arabs, not Jewish Arabs, Jews and Arabs, Israeli Arabs, who are citizens, right? They're not on the West Bank. They're citizens, and it's called I can't do the Hebrew, Makam Lekulanu, a place for us all. And the idea there is that from the river to the sea should be one country. Everybody gets a vote. There are 7.5 million Palestinians. There are 7.5 million Jews in Israel. Let's all get a vote and put a government together that serves everybody, and no more fighting over a solution there. And I'll say, to me, I'm still kind of holding out for the two-state solution. It really does appear at this point to be dead, I will admit, but I still think that that's the best way to go about this. I don't think that it's in Israel's best interest to have a one big country where everybody's a citizen, where there's voting. Now, birth rates are disparate, right? And the Palestinians on the West Bank have like 3 babies to every 1 Israeli baby to every 2 Arab Israeli babies. So in short order, there would be a Palestinian majority there, and of course they would vote for Palestinian prerogatives. So that's something. There's a lot of things that are happening in Israel that are related to this, directly related to this, that have happened since the memorandum of understanding last week. And these parties are just beginning to pull themselves together. There's not a vote in October. They're hoping to have their platforms together and be ready to compete for votes. I would predict, right, that Netanyahu will be voted out because he will be seen as a failure. I mean, this is probably more my hope than my prediction. And that somebody else would be left to govern there. And we've got a couple of years to go still with Trump here, but eventually an American president who is not Trump, I guess, would be able to restore Israeli-American relations to the point that they are beneficial to both and not self-destructive. Because I think Netanyahu has been self-destructive, and I think he is. Trump's a big boy. He's got to live up to his own decision making. He can't say, Bibi made me do it. But there's no doubt that Bibi has been a big influence on Trump. And that, with 20 years in power, man, that's just too long. I know it's not contiguous. Like, he's been out and back a few times, But Netanyahu is clearly a corrupt politician. He's clearly too powerful after 20 years for Israel's own good or his own good. And that you just can't have this kind of thing. And hopefully the Israeli people and the American people will catch on eventually and do the right thing.
And if you really want to gauge, how politics sees this deal, you got to look to the Republicans, and they're extremely critical of this deal. They're basically saying it's too weak. That it rewards the bad behavior of Iran, when really it was our and Israel's bad behavior that basically started this. Some of these are, some of the tenets of this memo of understanding, and we cannot. I'll be honest, we cannot call this a deal of any sort because it's too vague, way too vague. A lot of Republicans are saying this just gives Iran the opportunity to take the pause and rearm. And that's a possibility too. They complain about not having any, clear enforcement mechanisms. They're complaining that with this pause, especially this 60-day pause, it gives China and Russia an opportunity to increase their influence in the area. I mean, this is coming from like the Ted Cruz's of the world. So, when we look at this, we have to look at it from also the Republican standpoint. They're very skeptical of this whole thing, and I think a lot of it is because what we have right now in the world, especially when we're looking at this region, we have almost the perfect storm. We have an Israeli leader and an American leader who are so unpredictable that it just takes an already chaotic, already hazardous region and makes it worse. And, as Scott said, well, if we had, a different president, if we had a different leader in Israel, that might help. Yes, if we can get to that. Right now, I think the Europeans, the rest of the world is hanging on by their fingernails, hoping that we can get to that. And right now, it just does not seem like that's in the cards. We're stuck with what we got. Oh, and let's add in the Iranians, who we don't even have a clue who's really leading the Iranians at this point in time. We have no idea. You've got some reasonable actors in the region, relatively so, but a reasonable actor in a region cannot, and I hate to use the word, trump the unreasonable actors that are also involved in this. And I would have loved to have seen a clear cut, hey, here it is, here's the deal. But even the Republicans are saying today, yeah, but we cannot trust, diplomacy doesn't work when it comes to Iran. Does not work. Well, I got news for you, Republicans. Diplomacy doesn't work when it comes to Trump either. He's the one that started this while they were in negotiations. The diplomacy sure as hell doesn't work with Bibi Netanyahu. Diplomacy simply doesn't work. If that's the attitude you're going to take, well, Iran is the unreasonable actor in this. Well, I don't know. We're equally as unreasonable, and so is Israel. Matter of fact, I think Israel's even more unreasonable than we are. We're just chaotic over here. But I think Bibi Netanyahu probably has some sort of a plan. Who knows what it might be? But Trump's just going by his diaper, to get it, do what he wants to do. So when you get this type of environment, anybody that has studied international relations, anybody that has studied diplomacy understands that there's got to be some sort of trust in the room. And if you don't have even a foundation of trust, and we have to ask ourselves, why are the Iranians doing this? Well, hey, this has been expensive to them. Hey, this does give them a pause. Hey, this gives them the ability to, shore up their leadership. Why are we doing it? Well, hey, elections are coming up. We want to see the gas prices go down. I mean, what happened to they have no weapons left? Well, obviously they do. What do they do? Use a slingshot to take down, an Apache helicopter? I mean, what do they use? So we've always said when you go into the Middle East, even in times where there is not open conflict like we see here, the truth gets lost by the time it gets out here. Well, now we're in a situation where you're in a conflict zone. The truth is nowhere to be found. And here in the United States, well, I got news for you. For the past 2.5 years and 4 years before that and 4 years before that, the truth has been hard to find here. A lot of opinion, a lot of talking heads. But as far as what the real truth is, I don't know. Now, J.D. Vance is going to frame this as a great victory. But like I said, show me the politician that comes back and says, boy, did I screw that up. Oh, we got our ass handed to. No politician is going to do that. So that's fully expected. And I don't hold that against him because that's what politicians do. The question really comes down to it is you've got a third. This is the three-body problem, like in physics. It's a three-body problem. You've got Iran, you got the United States, you got Israel, all of which with different agendas. We really don't even know what the damn agenda is in the United States. I mean, to be honest. I mean, they have not put a clear cut. If it was to accomplish any of those goals that they set up and then they change and they set up again and then they change and they set up again when this started, well, they haven't done any of that. They have not done a damn thing. Strait of Hormuz is still closed. Sorry. We're still there. We have a framework to begin to bring back. What does that mean in reality? I mean, think about it.
Nothing.
It means zero.
It means nothing.
Absolutely nothing. And if you go into a bank and you take out a loan, and just an example, if the bank says, well, you know what, in 60 days we'll look at what your interest rate is again, and it's a bad deal. It's a bad deal. And this is basically the same thing. They're basically saying, here's sort of kind of maybe a framework that we can work with. None of this, we're doing this for our own reasons. The United States is, and as is Iran. It does give an opportunity to the Chinese and the Russians to get in there and get some more influence in that region. And if you think that we got trouble now, once they get in there, now we really got problems.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me. Sorry, Scott. Do you want to go ahead?
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking again about the Maduro abduction, and that Trump was told that Iran will be very, very different and that the strait would be closed. And his response was, well, we'll be finished and they will have surrendered before they have time to close the strait. So I think this was about another oil grab and a vanity project. It was going to be quick. It was going to be easy. It was going to make him look really tough and important. And it was going to give him more oil and more property control.
Yeah.
And he didn't pay any attention. So, we're back to the arrogance, to the narcissist, to the malignancy and the cruelty and the wanting to be the big thing, and the most important person, and incompetence. And that's what it was about. Mm-hmm.
And that incompetence goes to this. Mark brought up Russia and China. As we know, Trump has always seemed to envision the world being divided between the United States, Russia, and China. At the same time, in his own incoherent way, he always talks about America first. And in this case, as in others, but especially in this case, we have gone it alone. The JPCOA was not negotiated by the United States alone. It was the Security Council of the UN plus Germany that contributed to those 2 years of negotiation with Iran to get that deal done. There's nothing like that anymore. America first means America alone, especially when you're alienating Israel. And America alone is not as powerful as Trump pretends it is, and he's got to understand that. There's a line from a movie that I've used here before, Miller's Crossing, one of my favorite movies. The advisor to the head of the mob says to him, "You don't hold elective office in this town. You run this place because people think you run it. Once they stop thinking it, you stop running it." That's us right now. The world is not looking at the United States anymore for leadership. They're looking at China, and China is in there. China has a stake in this. China is a big importer of Iranian oil. They are a big importer. They're less now than they have been recently because of different things that are going on there, including EVs. But they have been long dependent on Middle Eastern oil, and they are not getting it. And that has made them get involved again in this. And the rest of the world is looking at China and saying, that could be the country that we want to cozy up to. And that would include Bibi Netanyahu. That would include an Israeli leader who finds it more palatable to deal with the Chinese with their very open pragmatism rather than Trump with his utter chaos, and the United States with our arrogance and our insistence that the world look like the United States, which has been true since the end of World War II, but might not be continuing now. And man, are we losing a lot, I mean, we were a superpower. That's not us alone. Superpowers have allies that make us more powerful, that amplify our power, our ability to move around the world, our ability to have allies and bases around the world. That's what makes you a superpower in this world. And we are probably no longer a superpower. We don't even know. We haven't even assessed the damage to the bases in the Middle East. We know they've been hit because we've seen satellite footage of it, but the Trump administration has suppressed new satellite coverage of them. But we don't know the extent of that damage, whether these bases will need to be rebuilt and how long that will take. We don't have the cards that we used to have to be a superpower anymore. Yeah, Brooke.
Even if, assuming that our former allies will allow us to rebuild those bases.
Right, yeah.
Which they may not. And I wouldn't blame them for not.
Not at all.
I mean, no.
UAE has become a target because it's got U.S. bases on it. And why would they want that to continue, especially if Iran gets the bomb? But even if they have ballistic missiles, which is, the Trump taco thing, he turned around on that and said, hey, it doesn't work like that. They've got to have ballistic missiles. Saudi Arabia's got ballistic missiles. They've got to have ballistic missiles. That is a scary thing for a U.S. president to say, because they're all going to want nuclear bombs too, to put on those missiles, and destabilizing the world in that region, especially where the cultures are so volatile. They are, symbolic gestures mean so much more than the word, the truth of the word. That is not a region of the world where you want people squaring off with nuclear bombs.
And what bothers me is that the clock, meantime, is really ticking on our strategic petroleum reserve. I mean, we have to have apparently a certain amount remaining in the salt caverns. If those barrels are removed, for one thing, I believe the walls will collapse physically, and also if we are down to literally zero, then if a hurricane happens or anything else happens, we will have no way to provide any fuel to provide any energy for the country or for anyone to drive anywhere, for food to be delivered or anything in this country. So we have to maintain a certain amount left over, regardless of the straits being closed. So there will be a gap if this continues, if the strait is closed, there will be a gap that cannot be filled. And then everything stops.
And that gap is not going to be refilled overnight.
No, it won't. It will take months, and that's something else that people need to understand. And there are not only is there urea and other fertilizers and other chemicals, there's, I forget what it's called. It goes into MRIs and X-rays. And without that, there are certain medical uses that petroleum has, and also, of course, plastics and containers and whatnot for products. There's a lot that people use petroleum for that we consumers, human beings, don't even think about. So there's going to be a shortage of medical capabilities. There's going to be a shortage of other products, shortages in areas that we're not accustomed to because of this. And it's not going to be addressed quickly. So we're in trouble. And so we have a problem. And we have a problem in this country because Trump has paid, actually, companies that were building offshore wind farms and things like that. He paid them billions to stop their projects. And he's been investing, or wanted to invest, like $700 million in coal and things like that. So we are, as a country, we have been going backward and becoming more fossil fuel dependent, not less. So when something like where we are with the strait happens, we are less well able to make an adjustment.
Yeah, it's a great point.
So yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we have a clock. I heard this statement recently, and I forget where I heard it. I'm sorry. We have a clock, but they have the time. They can wait us out with the strait.
Nice.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we all should be very concerned.
Making
America great again.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how far we've fallen in just 6 months. You know, just like we were in such good shape, and now we're just.
Oh God.
It seems like every aspect of our lives are going to be immiserated because of this.
And that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We want to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing team, Apple Podcasts, the largest source of podcast and music online, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your destination for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. And most importantly, we want to thank you, our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society could not be possible. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing on the platform of your choice. It's easy, it's free, and helps our channel grow. For questions or comments, you can reach us at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So on behalf of Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershworth, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power of society is knowledge. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Sciences, the JICS. This open access journal, double peer-reviewed, provides a platform for emerging scholars to publish their work and engage in meaningful dialogue across disciplines. The JICS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis and is published through the NovaWorks Scholarly Repository at Nova Southeastern University. You'll find a link to the journal in our episode description.